12,000 years old body of an Anunnaki king was found completely intact in Iran.
Buried beneath desert sands and echoes from the millennial past, a tomb that has been hidden for centuries exposes a secret that will change all we knew of colossal beings. Alongside this discovery are artifacts carved with celestial symbols, DNA that defies classification, and questions no one is ready to answer. Could this new DNA sample prove that giants aren't just myths but actual beings? From stories as old as time, and with the help of modern-day technology, join us as we uncover what really lies behind the tomb. An accidental discovery that rewrote history. In the blistering heat of Iraq's vast desert, far from civilization, a team of German explorers and archaeologists embarked on a classified expedition in the early 2000s. Led by Jörg Fassbinder, Margaret von Ess, and Helmut Becker, known for their fascination with the Sumerian civilization, the team went on this quest with no certain expectation. But what they were about to uncover would shatter everything they thought they knew. A quest that would turn years of research upside down and reveal a whole new truth. Hidden beneath layers of dust and rubbles, the team carefully excavated the site and discovered a sealed stone chamber that had been there for millennia. What lay inside was nothing short of astonishing: the intact skeleton of a colossal giant being. It measured over 12 feet in length with elongated limbs, thick bones, and skulls unlike anything ever seen. Using enhanced scientific gadgets, they discovered that this ancient being lived over 3,000 years ago, though some experts speculate that it might be even longer.
So we don't really know a great deal about him, except that he also died very young, probably around age 30.
What truly stunned the team wasn't just the colossal height, but the perfect preservation of the remains, which seemed almost deliberate. It was as if something or someone had taken a great deal of time to preserve and protect it over the years. Intrigued by this big reveal, the archaeologists dared to dig further, covering more than 100 hectares. But when they thought they had discovered the most astonishing find, they soon realized that the giant's tomb held a far greater secret, the remnant of an entire ancient civilization, the lost city of Uruk.
It's been known for a long time, obviously, that this tomb still remained to be discovered.
This was indeed a remarkable discovery, adding more intriguing details to what was already known. In this crumbled city, they found garden structures, field structures, Babylonian houses, and an incredibly sophisticated system of canals that linked to where the Euphrates rivers once flowed.
So this used to be like rooms and everything?
All these discoveries created several speculations, leaving the archaeologists with more questions than answers. With the most important question, who was this massive being? Was it a god, a ruler, or a warrior from a forgotten era? But right before the answers were fully uncovered, the United States Army invaded Iraq, forcing the archaeologists to put their research on hold. And then there was silence. The shadow of Gilgamesh. Beneath the ruins of ancient Uruk, a towering skeleton and divine relics have breathed new life into a 4,000-year-old legend, hinting that Gilgamesh, the god king of epic fame, may have walked among us. Gilgamesh, the legendary king who blurred the line between man and god. Known from cuneiform inscriptions dating back to around 2700 BCE, he appears in the Sumerian king list, a clay tablet that catalogs early rulers of Mesopotamia. That list, engraved by ancient scribes, places him at the head of Uruk, a city once famed for its great walls and sacred temples lining the Euphrates. But Gilgamesh wasn't just a name on a tablet. He was the subject of one of the world's oldest surviving works of literature, the Epic of Gilgamesh. In that tale, he's described as 2/3 god, 1/3 man, a warrior with unmatched strength, and a thirst for immortality.
The Epic of Gilgamesh, for people who don't know, is one of the oldest versions of a lot of the stories that you hear in the Bible.
For centuries, scholars have debated whether he was purely a myth or a real king whose life was later inflated into legend. Now, with the discovery of a towering skeleton surrounded by divine-themed artifacts, the debate has taken a dramatic turn. Artifacts found near the tomb, like cylinder seals bearing the name Gilgamesh, have previously been uncovered in the ruins of Uruk. These seals and other relics point to a real figure, likely a king, so powerful that later generations saw him as part divine. The cuneiform tablets found in the newly uncovered tomb include phrases like "King beloved of Inanna," referring to the goddess of love and war. That language fits Sumerian beliefs in divine kingship, where rulers were seen not just as men, but as chosen ones of the gods. So here's the real question. Was Gilgamesh just a strong, tall ruler whose reputation grew with every retelling? Or is there something deeper, possibly genetic, that fueled the myth? Some experts, like Samuel Kramer in the Sumerians, suggest the epic may be a reflection of real people.
As you well know, the Gilgamesh epic has been well known, but we still don't get a real idea.
Giants among men whose physical traits made them unforgettable. The skeleton size, so far beyond the norm, has only added to the speculation. Could this really be Gilgamesh? Or someone like him, one of the so-called god kings whose legacy crossed the line into legend? If the DNA evidence holds even a fraction of truth, this isn't just a story from the past. It's a story that could redefine what we believe about human history, myth, and how far back the roots of power and mystery really go.
So these sorts of clues would be the kinds of things that one would look for.
Sumerian gods and Anunnaki. The line between Sumerian kings and gods was never clear, and with this discovery near Uruk, the Anunnaki are no longer just myth, but part of a legacy carved in bone, clay, and starlight.
Becomes the story of our humanity. The Anunnaki literally came to Earth to mine the gold.
In Sumerian mythology, the Anunnaki were powerful deities believed to govern the forces of nature, time, and even human destiny. These gods, named in ancient texts like the Enuma Elish and the Atrahasis, weren't extraterrestrial beings, as some modern theories suggest. They were celestial figures deeply woven into the belief systems of early Mesopotamian society. Their names appear everywhere in Sumerian records. Enlil, god of storms and authority, Inanna, goddess of love and war, and Anu, the sky god, all central figures in the mythos, played key roles in shaping kingship and civilization. According to the Sumerians by Samuel Kramer, the Anunnaki were seen as creators, forming humanity from clay to serve their divine purposes. This is where the tomb's occupant takes on new meaning. Among the artifacts recovered in 2003 were cuneiform tablets that referenced a king beloved of Inanna. In Sumerian culture, this wasn't a poetic phrase. It was a political and spiritual endorsement. Rulers often claimed divine favor to legitimize their authority. Some even styled themselves as descendants of the gods, chosen to rule not just by power, but by cosmic right. The symbolism doesn't end there. Cylinder seals found in the tomb bore star patterns often associated with divine beings. These motifs aligned with Sumerian cosmology, where the heavens reflected the will of the gods. Celestial bodies like Nibiru, mentioned in some texts, were not mysterious rogue planets, but likely specific stars or symbolic points tied to rituals. So, was this individual seen as a son of the gods, a bridge between the human and divine? The mere scale of the tomb, the precision of its construction, and the grandeur of its contents suggest more than royalty. It suggests reverence, possibly worship. Kings of Uruk, especially those like Gilgamesh, were not just leaders. They were icons whose myths painted them as part divine, part human. Sumer's grand temples, ziggurats that stretched toward the heavens, weren't just architectural marvels. They were stages for divine connection, where rituals reaffirmed a king's sacred link to the gods. Whether the Anunnaki were metaphor or memory, the tomb's clues are undeniable. The people of ancient Mesopotamia believed in a divine order, and they buried this figure as if he stood at the center of it. If you're fascinated by how ancient myths and real history intertwine, go ahead and like this video. It helps us keep uncovering the truths hidden in time. Giants across the globe. Long before borders existed, ancient cultures were already telling the same story of towering figures whose size and stature earned them a place between legend and royalty. The giant skeleton found near Uruk wasn't just a local mystery. It might be part of a global phenomenon that spans ancient cultures and continents. From the deserts of Nevada to the burial mounds of China, stories and skeletal remains of unusually tall humans appear again and again in the archaeological record. These aren't myths pulled from dusty scrolls. They're physical finds, documented by researchers, and they reflect the reverence shown to the Uruk tomb's colossal occupant. Take Lovelock Cave in Nevada. Between 1911 and 1924, excavations uncovered massive human remains, some measuring up to 8 feet tall. Local Paiute legends told of red-haired giants, strong, fearsome warriors said to have once dominated the region. While often dismissed as folklore, the discovery of oversized bones lent unexpected weight to the old tales. Across the globe in Shandong, China, a 2017 dig at the Jiaojia site revealed Neolithic burials of men standing over 6 feet 2 inches tall, extraordinary for their time. Archaeologists suggested their size came from better diets and social status. Still, their ceremonial graves hint at something more, a deep cultural respect for these towering individuals. Then there's Sardinia in Italy. The island's Monte Prama statues, carved around 1000 BCE, stand at 8 feet tall and depict heavily armed warriors guarding a necropolis.
One of the most remarkable discoveries dating to the Sardinian Bronze Age is a group of finds called the Giants of Monte Prama.
While stylized, they were likely inspired by real figures whose size and strength made them legends in their own time. And in Peru, the Parashas culture left behind elongated skulls and large skeletons that inspired tales of sky gods. DNA tests in 2014 confirmed they were fully human, but their size and appearance sparked enduring myths. Again and again, we see the same pattern. Cultures preserving the memory of giant rulers, warrior elites, or divine-like humans. These individuals weren't just taller than average. They were memorialized, mythologized, and in some cases, deified. Now compare that to the tomb at Uruk. The skeleton's towering height, the divine-themed artifacts, the reverent burial, it all fits. This wasn't an accident. This was intentional. Whoever lay in that tomb wasn't just important. He was remembered as something more. Was this Uruk giant part of a forgotten class of elites whose power and size transcended borders? If so, the stories of ancient giants aren't just myths. They're buried truths scattered across the globe, waiting to be unearthed. The fall of the giants. The end of the giants wasn't just a legend, it was extinction in slow motion. A collapse so brutal, it buried kings like gods and turned their towering legacy into dust and myth. From Sumerian flood legends to biblical tales of the Nephilim, ancient texts are filled with stories of giants brought low by divine wrath. The Sumerians spoke of Enlil, a god so angered by chaos that he sent a great flood to wipe the slate clean. The book of Genesis tells of a similar deluge, erasing the Nephilim, giants said to be born of divine and human unions. In Greece, the gods battled the gigantes in a cosmic war, ending with the giants imprisoned beneath the earth. These stories share a theme: giants rising in power, then vanishing in disaster. And while they read like legends, some scholars believe they preserve distorted memories of real upheavals. Around 2300 BCE, Mesopotamia faced one of its worst climate collapses. Drought swept across the land. Crop failures crippled once mighty cities like Uruk. Social systems broke down. For tall, well-fed elites, often the warriors or kings, this sudden scarcity could have been fatal. Their status and size, once symbols of strength, became liabilities in an age of hunger. Disease may have played a role too. Plague struck ancient cities hard. In close quarters with limited medicine, even the strongest bodies couldn't always survive. Clay tablets from Sumer record waves of sickness, devastating populations.
Is they could pinpoint the skeletons back to about 5,000 years and also pinpoint the plague back to 5,000 years.
The very features that made someone a giant in the public eye, abundance, privilege, excess, may have also marked them for extinction when nature turned cruel. Natural disasters left their mark too. Earthquakes, floods, and even volcanic eruptions wiped out settlements in a single stroke. Entire communities disappeared, sealed beneath rubble and mud. Sometimes the only trace that remained was a carefully sealed tomb, like the one discovered in Uruk. Its preservation may not have been accidental. The chamber's meticulous sealing suggests reverence and urgency. Perhaps the society feared losing this figure entirely, someone seen as the last of a rare kind. Myths of divine punishment may have grown from the ashes of real-world tragedy, a way to explain sudden, senseless loss. But another possibility lingers. What if these towering rulers didn't vanish, but merged? Over time, through generations, their traits could have faded into the wider gene pool. As we inch closer to what lies inside that sealed laboratory, one question rises louder than the rest. Did giants fall by force, or did they simply fade into us? The civilization beneath Sumer. Before the Sumerians carved their stories into clay and crowned kings beneath ziggurats, something older stirred in the soil of Mesopotamia, something that might explain the true origin of the Uruk tomb and the towering figure buried inside.
By the Akkadians, who occupied the northern region of Mesopotamia, while Sumer occupied the south.
Archaeologists have long celebrated the Sumerians as the first great civilization, but recent discoveries suggest they may have inherited their brilliance from a forgotten people who walked the land centuries earlier. Digs at sites like Tel Brak, Eridu, and ancient Samarra have revealed traces of a sophisticated culture that predates even Uruk by hundreds of years. We're talking about advanced irrigation systems carved into dry earth before cities had names, pottery so intricate it defies its age, and proto-cuneiform symbols that hint at the birth of written language. This was not the work of a primitive tribe. It was a civilization with structure, symbols, and memory. What's more, some of their artifacts bear an uncanny resemblance to the celestial themes found in the Uruk tomb. Stone carvings depict towering figures with regal posture, sometimes holding tools or staffs that seem oddly oversized, built for hands larger than the average humans. At first glance, these might seem like artistic exaggerations, but when you set them next to the remains found in the Uruk burial chamber, the connection feels too precise to ignore. It's not just the scale of the bones, it's the entire presentation. The inscriptions referencing deities like Inanna and the alignment of burial items with celestial patterns reflect motifs from this older culture. They venerated the stars, tracked movements in the sky, and may have passed on stories that morphed into the mythos of the Anunnaki, divine beings said to shape the destiny of men. If the occupant of the Uruk tomb belonged to this long-lost civilization, then what we've been calling mythology might actually be misremembered history. A king, a warrior, or a shaman, someone who towered above others in more ways than one, may have lived, died, and been buried in a way that kept his memory alive across centuries. His people may have vanished, but their knowledge lived on, reinterpreted by the Sumerians as divine gifts. And that brings us to the mystery at hand. The skeleton's DNA, still hidden behind lab doors, might hold more than genetic code. It could confirm a link to a people we've only glimpsed through ruins and rumor. If the tests reveal traits unlike those of known Sumerians, we may have to rewrite everything we thought we knew about Mesopotamia. The Uruk tomb may not be a Sumerian crown jewel. It might be a time capsule, sealed tight by a fading culture, desperate to keep their legacy from being swallowed by silence. The secrets buried in this tomb reach far beyond what we've known. Share this discovery with your friends and let them join in, unraveling a history that's been hidden for millennia. The DNA enigma. When researchers finally cracked the genetic code of the Uruk skeleton, they uncovered a revelation that could shift the story of human ancestry. The DNA wasn't alien, but it wasn't entirely modern either. Extracted from the massive skeleton buried deep beneath the Mesopotamian sands, the ancient DNA showed expected links to the people of 2600 BCE Uruk. But tucked within the genetic strands were anomalies, rare variants not commonly found in today's global populations. These markers point to an archaic lineage, possibly one that branched off from modern humans tens of thousands of years ago and somehow made its way into the bloodline of this mysterious figure. This changes everything. Some scientists believe these unusual traits could be the result of interbreeding with now extinct human cousins, like Neanderthals or Denisovans. These groups are known to have passed on genes that influenced height, bone density, and disease resistance in certain populations. In the case of the Uruk skeleton, the size, strength, and bone structure suggest that this individual may have inherited more than just stories, possibly a physical legacy from a long-forgotten branch of humanity. That would explain a lot. The tomb's inscriptions describe a king favored by the heavens.
So, now if you are curious to know more about this Anunnaki tomb,
And in a time when divine bloodlines were taken seriously, someone with such a striking presence, both physically and genetically, might easily be elevated to godlike status. Whether seen as a demigod, a giant, or a chosen leader, this person's DNA could have been the spark behind ancient myths like Gilgamesh, or even the tales of the Nephilim. But here's where the mystery deepens. Only fragments of the genetic data have been made public. Much of the analysis was carried out in private labs, and the full report has never been released. Some say it's due to geopolitical instability in the region. Others believe the findings are simply too controversial to be shared openly. After all, if a forgotten lineage was discovered in the ruins of ancient Sumer, it wouldn't just rewrite textbooks. It would challenge long-held beliefs about where we come from. Still, everything released so far points to one clear conclusion. This was no ordinary man. His genes suggest a legacy tied to something older, deeper, and more complex than we've been taught. He may not have been a giant in the mythical sense, but biologically, he stood apart. And that leaves us with a chilling thought. If this is just one tomb, how many more are still out there, hiding pieces of our forgotten past in their bones? Myths meet reality. The discovery of archaic DNA in the Uruk tomb doesn't just raise scientific eyebrows, it breathes new life into ancient myths we once dismissed as fiction. What if legends like Gilgamesh or the Nephilim weren't just stories, but distant memories of real figures whose extraordinary traits left an imprint on human culture? The Epic of Gilgamesh describes a mighty king who was two-thirds god, towering in strength and wisdom. It sounds like myth until you compare it to the Uruk skeleton, a physically dominant figure buried with divine inscriptions, towering over his peers and connected to royal lineage. In a world of 5-foot warriors, someone approaching 7 to 8 feet with rare features would have been unforgettable, worthy of legend. It doesn't stop there. Biblical texts speak of the Nephilim, beings born of human and heavenly unions, remembered for their immense size and power. These figures were often seen as giants, both feared and revered. Strangely, that description lines up with what scientists are finding in the Uruk DNA, genetic anomalies that point to an ancient lineage distinct from typical humans. Whether through natural selection or isolated breeding, these traits may have produced people who quite literally stood apart. And then there's the Anunnaki, the Sumerian deities said to have shaped civilization.
12,000 years old body of an Anunnaki king was found completely intact in Iran.
While often portrayed as gods, their stories are full of human-like behavior, political drama, and alliances. The artifacts in the tomb bear their names: Inanna, goddess of war and love; Enlil, lord of the sky. To the people of Uruk, the man buried here may have been seen as a living bridge between the earthly and the divine, a king elevated by his bloodline, not just his crown. Across cultures, these patterns repeat with heroes larger than life. Flood survivors like Utnapishtim and Noah, sky gods and demigods walking among mortals. What if these weren't just fabrications, but memories passed down, reshaped by time, and fueled by the presence of a few remarkable individuals? The evidence suggests it's possible. Myths don't need to be exact histories to carry truth. They can be cultural reflections of something real. And in the case of the Uruk tomb, those reflections might come from a man whose biology set him apart and whose legacy was stretched into the stars. But with part of the DNA findings still locked behind closed doors, the full story remains just out of reach. One thing is clear though, the bones speak volumes. They urge us to look at myths not as fantasy, but as the faint outlines of history, waiting for science to connect the dots. The unanswered questions. The Uruk tomb's towering skeleton, mysterious artifacts, and cryptic DNA have cracked open a door to a past where giants may have truly walked, and where myth and history blur. Across Iraq, ongoing excavations at ancient cities like Ur and Eridu are slowly peeling back layers of time, uncovering clues that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about Mesopotamia's hidden legacy. Despite political unrest and difficult conditions, archaeologists keep pushing forward. They believe the Uruk find might not be an isolated wonder. Beneath the sands could lie more tombs, more skeletons with extraordinary traits, each one shedding light on the rulers and warriors who might have inspired legends.
The discovery of this mysterious tomb took place entirely by chance back in 2008.
Giants whose stories grew into the gods and heroes of ancient lore. The DNA from the Uruk skeleton hints at a forgotten chapter in human history. It's rare that genetic markers challenge the simple story of human evolution and hint at a lineage mingling with archaic humans long vanished from memory. These traits might explain why ancient people saw their kings as divine, why tales like Gilgamesh and the Nephilim echo through millennia. But the full genetic story remains locked away, hidden in a private lab and shielded by secrecy. Whether due to politics or the groundbreaking nature of the discovery, this silence only stokes more questions. What other revelations wait buried beneath the earth, ready to challenge our understanding of the past? This tomb forces us to rethink history's limits. If a single skeleton can point us towards such profound truths, what might future findings reveal? Could they confirm that our ancestors were shaped by unions with ancient relatives, their genes carrying whispers of giants and gods? The search continues, not just by scientists and archaeologists, but by curious minds everywhere. As we dig deeper into the mysteries of Uruk and beyond, every new discovery brings us closer to unraveling the tangled threads of myth and reality. The story of the Uruk tomb is far from finished. It's a call to keep searching, to question boldly, and to embrace the unknown chapters of humanity's forgotten past. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.